Fellow Toastmasters and guests, happy to see you all here today. And I would like to ask you a question to consider before I begin my speech. It's whether you can experience shame or deep regret for something you did or didn't do in your childhood. Something that might have been out of your control because you were a child without agency, possibly without any knowledge of how the world works. Obviously, I'm asking you because I myself have carried a deep shame or deep regret from my childhood. And that was that I never learned to swim. I hope some of you out there share the sentiment with me so that you can empathize as I tell you my tale of gumption. You might think that because I couldn't swim, I stayed out of the water. But as I used to like to say, the water may not like me, but I love the water. And it was true. I never avoided any kind of water activity. Just to give you an example, I've been boogie boarding in the beach. I tried surfing and work out. I've been kayaking in open water. I even jumped off a cliff into a pool of water, thinking I would be okay. My friends had to rescue me, and I told them that my contacts had come out of my eyes, and that was why I was disoriented. I went whitewater rafting. Class 4 rapids, which are not the worst, but they're not easy. This was in South America, where regulations are lax. I had a vest on, and I thought I would be okay. It was a lot of fun until we capsized, which happens a lot apparently in Class 4 rapids, especially when there are rocks, giant rocks in the river, and many people who don't know what they're doing. And I thought the vest would save me, but I had to be rescued yet again. That time I was pretty frank and told people I didn't know how to swim, otherwise they would have left me in the river. And everybody was panicking, so I thought that it was okay. Everybody forgot immediately. The most impactful story I have actually that involves the water is when I went scuba diving. And I say impactful because it really changed my perspective on my relationship with the water. Actually, if you've been scuba diving, you know that you don't really need to be a proficient swimmer to dive. You really get trained on how to use the equipment in a controlled environment, i.e. a pool. And if you have the equipment, you'll be fine, as long as the equipment doesn't malfunction. But in case the equipment malfunctions, before you go in the open water, they test whether you can survive without the equipment. That makes sense, right? Because if something goes wrong, you need to be able to take care of yourself. For example, you need to be able to float so that the people on your boat can see you and rescue you. And so there's a swim test and a float test. And I failed both. I had a pool in my hotel. And so I practiced and practiced and practiced. I had somebody who was taking the scuba diving excursion with me, complete stranger. She was very nice. She said, "You can do this. It's very easy. I'm going to help you." Day and night, we practiced in the pool. I could not float. I can kind of lap around and move water and splash and move a foot or so if you give me enough time, but I can't float. Luckily, I was able to go scuba diving. It wasn't the end of the world. They just limit the depth that you can go if you can't pass the float test. And so that prevented me from going below 18 meters, which is the beginner depth, which is still very cool. I saw a lot of cool fish, I think. It was a little blurry in there. I would be lying if I said it went smoothly. And I recall I said you don't have to be a proficient swimmer to just go scuba diving, but you have to be able to breathe calmly. And that is something I didn't do. I kind of panicked and I was inhaling really fast, and I saw the oxygen running out of my tank. I thought, I can't swim or float. I'm going to die in here. Luckily, the excursion was about over and we went to the surface and I was okay. Crisis averted. Nobody knew, nobody was the wiser. Now this changed my perspective because I came back to the United States. I was traveling, where you always do crazy things, right? And I decided I'm going to learn how to float. I'm going to learn to swim as well, but floating is really, really important because I wanted to be able to go scuba diving below 18 meters, for whatever reason. So I went, signed up at the YMCA with an instructor. I was in a pool with my instructor and a bunch of children. I'm not kidding. My instructor was very patient with me. He really believed that I could do it until about 2 weeks later. He thought, you need to practice on your own. Course is over. There's a reason I never learned to swim when I was a child, and it's that I didn't have access to a pool, a regular pool. I did occasionally, through a family friend, swim in a lap pool, and the family friend taught me. But this wasn't regular practice. This was just a thing I did every once in a while, and eventually it stopped. If you don't practice, you can't get good at something, right? This is the part of the story where I tell you that with my gumption and perseverance, I learned to swim and float, but that's false. I gave up. It took me a long time to accept that you don't have to be good at everything. It's okay. And so now, I hate the water.